Welcome back. This is video number 5. We're still working on this guy. I noticed I didn't say anything about how to get a hold of him if you need me. So let me give you, I'm assuming you're watching this through YouTube. So you know how to get a hold of me through YouTube. There's my Instagram. I'm going to show the front, but I'm going to hide my address. Not because I don't trust anybody, but I'm a very private person and I don't like all my contact information out there. But anyway, there's my email, phone number, and website. Let me get that a little closer there for you. For any of you that are interested, there's my Gmail address. There's my website. That website is fairly new. My son and I worked on it over the summer. And eventually I'm going to have a lot of things on there that anybody wants to buy. I'm going to link it, either just a picture with a price on it to get a hold of me, or it'll be linked to an Etsy site where you can purchase it directly off the site. But anyway, this is how you get a hold of me for those of you that are interested. If not, throw that away and we'll catch up with each other on YouTube. I have pulled my tools out. I've been having my tools sitting off on the side. I pulled them out and I've got just my tool holder here. I'll show that to you for those that are interested in. This is one of them. I got a bigger one behind me and it's much longer. Probably, I don't know, it's probably another foot longer than this one. This is what I use to carry my stuff. It goes in a toolbox, a tool bag that I have, a little husky tool bag that I got from Lowe's. But this is where I put everything in there. Knives down here, and then everything's just kind of scattered in here. There's V-tools and V-tools, an extra knife. Here's U-gouges, V-tool, here's fishtails. Anyway, I use that because it keeps my stuff fairly separated. I know where everything is, and I can usually just reach down beside me and pick out whatever tool I want. We're looking pretty good on this hat. I really want to narrow this face down a little bit because this is some wide cheekbones, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I just want it a little bit thinner. So I'm going to take I'm going to take a fishtail gouge. This is my oldest fishtail gouge. I've had this for, I don't know, probably 12 years. It is a number 3 fishtail gouge. Number 1 would be flat. This is a number 3. It's got a little bit of a sweep to it. This is a Drake brand. For those of you that know Drake tools, Gil and Bonnie Drake up in Washington do some fantastic things with tools, and the handles are usually very pretty. Get my old trusty measuring stick out here. This looks like the ear goes from 24 to 25 centimeters, which means it's 1 centimeter wide. For we Americans, we don't like doing anything that's not standard, and so this is going to be a 5/8. It's 5/8 wide. And what I'm going to do, I drew some lines on here, but I just want to take some of this bulk down. So I'm just going to, I'm eyeballing it as I go, and I'm just going to thin this part of the face down. I'm going to take some of this off again with the next step because I'm going to take the area back here between the ear and the hair. We're going to take a lot of that out. But I just want to thin some of that out just because I think the head was bigger than I intended it to be because I didn't take enough off. But it also can have a tendency to look out of proportion. Nothing wrong with caricature carvings looking a little bit out of proportion, but we're playing around with this guy and we're doing it as we come along. I've done a lot of these things. I haven't done one in a while, and so I you know, you forget the little steps that you do along the way to get where you want to go. So like I say, I've done a lot, but it's been a while since I've done one, so I'm relearning with you. So we're learning together. Anyway, just want to take a little bit of that out. Next thing we're going to do, we've got the hair back here, and it's real flat and straight. So we're going to fix that hair, and we're going to make it look better. I'm going to start with a V-tool. This is my Flex Cut V-tool. It's if I had to guess on the angle, I haven't taught math in a long time, I'd say that's about a 70 degree. I'm guessing. I don't know, but it looks about 70 degree, and it is about 5 millimeters wide, which would be, I can't do that conversion in my head, about 1/4 inch. Anyway, what I'm going to do is go right here behind the ear, and I'm just going to cut in for the hair. I'm going to go fairly deeply because this hair comes straight square off, and we're going to round it to match the head. I'm going to do that on both sides, eyeballing both of them so that I can keep them fairly straight. And we're just going to deepen that cut. And then we're going to see what we can do about trimming that hair, because you can see how square that is, and I don't like that. So reach in here with a big knife. First one I come to, and not necessarily preference. Stop cut right in there, and we'll start separating that out. So I'll take my fishtail gouge again, and I'm just going to come in here and come to that hair. It's going to be rounded back here too, so I can go ahead and do that with that fishtail gouge. And we start to get that hair looking a little less robotic, I call it. So it looks like something you would put on an Android to make them all look standardized. But we don't have standardized cowboys. I don't think I've ever seen a cowboy that's standardized. If I had to pick my favorite cowboy, I'm not sure I could. That would be somewhere between Sam Elliott, Tom Selleck, and John Wayne, with a little bit of Chris Ledoux thrown in there because, you know, that guy can sing. But I could no more pick a favorite cowboy than I could anything else, because I enjoy Festus from Gunsmoke, you know, and there's a lot of them. I really like Wilford Brimley's character in Crossfire Trail. Crossfire Trail was a movie with Tom Selleck and Wilford Brimley. Wilford Brimley was, you know, the sidekick. Joe Gill, I think, was his character name in the show. I like him too. He does a good cowboy because he's about as authentic as they get. Raised horses and whatever. But anyway, I'm trying to get this fella sized down to where I want. It'll be too straight if I get in there that way. I better get in there with a knife. Cut that out. I hope you've enjoyed the ride so far. We've been having a little bit of fun with this guy. Enjoying carving him. Now, when you go to carve this space right in here, here's your ear. And if you'll take your finger and go to the point of the mandible where it connects, it's right below the ear. Where your mandible, lower jaw connects, is right here. Follow that straight down, it goes right down to your jaw. How far we want to drop this is going to be determined by how far we want it to fit. And so if I put this in here, I made this in the original one I had, it was a little bit shorter. I made this a little bit longer so we could have him a goofy neck if we want to, but I didn't drill that far down in here. So we're going to have to take some of that off because his neck is, you know, his neck is not right. But anyway, we'll thin it down, we'll make it narrower, but we'll also bring it down in terms of that. But where the jaw comes in is what you're going to have to determine, and you're going to have to determine what you're going to do with this bandana or this body bust part. Is this going to be a shirt like this fella? Is he going to have a Is he going to have just a bandana like this fella? So as we carve along that face, think about what you want as your next step. I'm always planning. I'm always trying to plan. I don't always plan. I'm always trying to plan on what my next step is going to be. And so your job here is to think in the back of your mind, keep that program running in the back of your head, what you're going to do next. Because what you do next on these carvings is determined by what you do now. If I take too much wood off now, that affects what I do next. And so if I took off too much wood in here, it would affect what I'm doing. But anyway, grab a riding stick. From right here at the back of the ear, the jaw comes down at a little angle. And so we have to decide whether we're going to cut that off. And then we have to decide if this is where his nose is going to be, are we going to have a big old mustache? Okay? Big old mustache. Big old smile. If you're used to doing mustaches, try a smile. Try making the face using the anatomy that you have. I have a wonderful little tool that I use for anatomy, and I'm looking behind me to see if I can find it. Dave Stetson, one of the premier caricature carvers in the country, probably one of the best, if not the best, used to make these facial planes. This is plaster. used to make these facial planes examples of anatomy, because he's really good at anatomy. This was made in 2016, so it's been a while. I'm not sure if he still does, but maybe some of you can get a hold of him if you want one of these. But when you take a face down to what you have to concentrate on, you have to focus on where you're at. So if you look at this jaw from the back of the ear, this is what I'm talking about right here. Dave does a good job of showing it here. That way that comes down and comes over gives you a lot of opportunity with this fella. We know we have to remove a lot of wood now, so let's just go ahead and do that. I have a specialized tool that I use for that, and I say I have a specialized tool, and it's across the room. So let me reach and grab that. And I'm not saying you have to go out and buy a tool, this particular tool, that particular tool, but and this is the one I first started using on this, and it's one that works really well for me. This is it says number 7, but it doesn't have much of a sweep to it. It's a number 7 file, and I don't know, boy, I don't use this much. I use it on a few things. It's 1/4 inch wide, and it is, I'd say that's a number 3, but they call it a number 7, and they're the experts. I'm gonna call it a number 7. I'm going to use this to make it rounded. So I don't want a real sharp cut right in there. I'm just going to go in where I'm upside down. So I'm going to go in like this. And what this is going to do is allow me to thin that area between the jaw and the neckline. And I'm sure you could do this with just about any tool you've got. I've never carved with Tom Wolfe and some of the other ones that started the CCA, but I heard a story that Tom, it might not have been Tom, it could have been Harold Inlow, I don't know. One of the older carvers was teaching a class, and when he got to one person, that person said, well, show me how you do eyes. And that carver said, well, I always do eyes with this tool, and he grabbed a V tool. And he did an eye, and they're like, oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Goes, next person gets to another person who, at the other end of the table, who couldn't hear what he said about eyes, and said, well, show me how you do eyes. And he grabs a gouge, and he carves an eye. And oh, well, thank you very much. And that went around the table two or three times. Every time somebody asked him to carve an eye, he grabbed a different tool. And I guess that's the difference between being an expert and still learning. You can do a lot of things with a lot of different tools. And so it just comes down to your comfort level. Are you comfortable being only a knife carver? Are you comfortable buying more and more tools and having specialized tools for just this one cut? Well, I'm not one to tell you to buy tools, and I'm not one to tell you not to buy tools. I'm going to tell you whatever works. If you can get a butcher knife out of the kitchen and sharpen that baby up to where you want it to be as sharp as you want with the shape you want, then I say go for it. You use whatever tool you got, and you got people out there that are carving with a box cutter. I've tried it. It's not for me. Not because it doesn't work. It's just it doesn't fit my hand. That one that Lynn Dowdy uses on his cowboy carvings and his Old West carvings. I've tried it, and I just can't get that thing to fit in my hand very well. And so, as I said earlier in this series, if you're going to carve, you're probably going to be successful at carving with tools that fit your hand. If they don't fit your hand, I'm sorry, don't waste money on them. I don't care how good they are. You have to be comfortable carving that, and you have to be comfortable using that. And if it doesn't fit your hand, I don't have great big hands. I have the gloves I use they say small on them, sometimes say extra small, because I like it to fit tight, number one. I'm probably a medium-sized hand or bordering on the small. You got to be careful and comfortable with what you're doing. So I am just thinning down. We've got this area back here that will soften that sharp edge, but we've got to figure out what's going to happen with this neck. How far down does the hair go? We've got to figure that out too. And so I'm just going to try to get this area to merge together, because I'll come back together and give him a hairline later. But I'm smoothing that down to where the neck and the head are on the same plane. You can see that there. We're almost down there. And that'll give me time to play around with that neck. Let's do that other side. So right from the back of the ear, I think we're about right there. Might bring that down a little bit more. And we'll just take that tool that we found in our tool bag. I hope you're having a good time on this ride. I like carving cowboys. They're just a fun part for me. Like I said, I enjoyed watching those old cowboy shows when I was a kid. I think every time Gunsmoke on, we was always glued to it. Really enjoyed the Big Valley, I think that was the name of it, with Lee Majors, Barbara Stanwyck, and a few others. Really enjoyed that show. Love watching John Wayne come on TV and do his thing, and it's just an enjoyable thing to be able to watch those old westerns. It was a different time in our lives, wasn't it? Anyway, I switched to a bigger tool because I got tired of all those little cuts I was making. I'm going to narrow this down quite a bit so it looks like he's got some separation there. And we got the hair here. We're gonna cut back to that tool. I'm going to take that down. I used the knife on the other side. I'm going to use this tool because it's ready to hand. We're getting that neck coming down. Remember, we're going to tilt that neck on this guy, so we want to make sure that there's not a part of the carving that looks out of whack there. So it looks like we've got a hairline coming through here, comes around through here, and comes up through there. And so we'd have a little bit of fun with that. Again, it doesn't have to be perfectly exactly the same on both sides, because cowboys, you know, they didn't stop and groom themselves every 5 minutes. They weren't taking 800 selfies looking in the mirror all the time. My students are funny. I'll be in the middle of class and we'll be doing work, and you'll see some people always taking selfies of themselves, and I'm going, you got 900 of them in your phone, why do you need a few more? I don't know. But then that statement is coming from a guy who really doesn't enjoy posing for pictures. I will, but it's not my favorite thing to do. I'm sure most of you feel that way. You know, it's like you're getting a picture taken at the DMV. Do you really enjoy getting your picture taken at the DMV? Because they wait until the moment when your mouth is open, your eyes are closed, or you're picking your nose or whatever, and it's just like, you know, unless I get to carefully craft what I'm doing in a picture, I don't want anybody looking at me. All right, we got that face down a little bit thinner. I took a little bit off here. I'm going to take a little more off underneath this ear as well. If you're having trouble with wood, let me tell you, you can't. I mean, you got to buy good wood. And I don't care where you buy it from. You got to buy good wood. There's some good wood manufacturers out there, and I don't want to. I'm not being sponsored by anybody. There's no one that sponsored me. The wood manufacturers, anybody else. Okay, let me take that back. Years ago, I used to have a middle school after-school carving class. And I looked for donations, and I think I said this in an earlier video here. I looked for donations, and FlexCut was the one that sent me the most stuff. They sent me the most tools. I think they sent me, I don't even know how many tools it was. They would send me individual tools, they sent me individual sets, and with a nice little letter about, we appreciate you keeping wood carving going. And you know, that thing lasted about 2 or 3 years, and then the kids kind of filtered away, because you get a kid in, and then 3 weeks later basketball season will start, and they're gone. You spent that money on that wood, they haven't finished it. Anyway, they've sponsored me in terms of donating some stuff to do that club. And our local woodcraft store sponsors me in terms of hosting classes for me. So I teach a number of classes through them. So I'm gonna be loyal to them, because they're great for me, and they've done well for me, and I really enjoy working with them. So not fishing for more sponsors, but if somebody wants to throw me some money, I'm not going to tell them no, as long as I believe in the product. So anyway, thinning that face down a little bit. We'll get a little bit more thin, because we're going to take out this eye socket and deepen it. We're going to get some cheekbones out of here. We're going to worry about the dental mount here as well. So we're just having a little bit of fun with this guy, just continuing on. We got the hat shaped to where we can see where we're headed, and we've got the face going in the right direction. I want to deepen that hairline a little bit more. Now I'm putting this hairline in here because that's where I want the hair to go. We'll come in here when we tool that hair, we'll take a lot of those harsh lines off. But what I don't want on a face is a lot of harsh lines, unless I mean to put them in there like a laugh line or something like that. But this will give me an opportunity to shape that head, because I want to figure out what tool I need to get in there with. I want to just come in here and give that hair a little more of a shape than it had when it was real blocky, square. And I got this line back here. There's two parts of this particular carving that are really hard to get hit to. One is back here at the back of the head, and one is right up under here at the front of the head. We've figured out how to get up under there, and we can thin this out because I still got a lot of thick wood in here. But getting back in here is a little bit difficult, because not only am I can come in here with a fishtail gouge and I can just trim out those lines and I can give it some shape. But when you go to adding some hairlines in here, that's hard to do, because if you go in here with a V-tool, and I'll grab a small one. You go in here with a V-tool, when you're cutting up here, the grain's running this way, and so you're cutting against the grain as you go. You can't really go in here this way and come back out, because your tool's not going to cut. And so you have to trim a little bit of this. Not much, but let's work on that. I'll grab a little smaller knife, the one that's not quite so big. We're going to trim this out because there's some square lines here that I got to work on. This is going to help me reshape the back of this hat. So be careful. This stuff will break off on you like that. I need that to break off because I don't want this real harsh, sharp edge. And so I need that to break off, but I wasn't going to cut it this way. I was going to cut it down this way. Anyway, the carving decided it needed to do that, and so we'll agree with it this time. Next time we'll make it do what we want it to do. But I'm just shaping this hat so that I can get some of those real square lines out of it. Okay. Take a little bit more. Feel free to use another tool if you feel more comfortable with that. I'm used to rounding the cut, so I can do that. But we're still real flat here. So I'm just going to take this tool, this fishtail gouge, and I want to do two or three things. I want to get rid of this cut line here as I trim this hat. Be careful when you're grabbing this side of it, this edge will be willing to break off on you. So anyway, I'm just trying to give it more shape. I want to give myself some shape to that hat, plus I want to get in here to have a little bit more fun with that hair. And I can't do that with all these cut lines in here. I see a lot of these old ones that I've done where I just didn't get back down in here and remove all those cut lines. And to me, it's a matter of finishing. It'd be like if I grabbed something from off the shelf at a store and it wasn't done the right way. I'd probably be, I'd probably be a little peeved that I bought that one that wasn't done. But I'd say yell at me if I'm getting off the screen, but this isn't a Zoom meeting. This is a videotape, so I don't have anybody in here but me. So my wife is working in the other room, and I gotta keep from yelling and screaming. So she's working on. She works for a credit union, so she's doing a lot of that stuff. And they'll pop into a meeting all the time, and I'll go out there and talk to her, and she's talking, and she's in a meeting, or I start talking, and she looks up and waves at me real furiously, like, I'm in a meeting, I'm talking right now, they can hear you. So I'm glad I don't walk out of there in my skivvies, old military term for our underwear. Anyway, we got that hair a little bit shaped, and we'll add more detail as we need to. Right now, we don't need to. I'm going to continue, since I started trimming back here, I'm going to continue working on this hat a little bit. We're going to work on more on the face today. And so I'm going to continue just trimming this hat up. I see a lot of cowboy carvers, and one of the best ones that I see lately is Myron Compton. Anybody ever seen Myron Compton? A lot of them do something that I don't do. They'll have a lot of marks going up through here that they do with a gouge, and it makes the hat wave. I personally don't do that. I don't think it fits the carvings that I'm doing, but I'm not saying anything about how anybody else carves. Everybody carves their own way, and I'm not here to tell you how to carve. I'm just willing to show you how I carve, and if you want to follow that, I'm extremely grateful. I started this video series yesterday, and I've already had several comments from people telling me, hey, you know, what about this, and I like this, and I like that, and it's extremely grateful to hear that. At least I know I'm reaching somebody, and somebody cares about what I'm doing, and likes it, and I can't tell you how much that makes me feel good, because it knows that I'm making a difference in somebody's life. I'm helping them learn how to do something that they may not have done, or may not have tried, or may not have felt like they could because they didn't have the skills they needed. So I'm hoping this will help. I'm always willing to teach. I've been teaching for a long time. I was on the International Association of Woodcarvers not too long ago, and you know, the message I wanted to get out was that I've been teaching for a long time. I think I started teaching at 19, and it wasn't necessarily teaching something important, but it was teaching something fun, and it was teaching something that was needed. And so I've always been teaching, and I'm always going to continue teaching. Even when I leave the school classroom, I'm still going to teach, and this is the part I enjoy. So hint, hint, if anybody needs a teacher to come to their area, I live in Boise, Idaho, and I would be glad to come to a lot of places and teach carving as well. I'm going to give the bottom of this hat a little bit of a tilt, a little bit of a upswing. Just a little bit of that right there where it looks like the front is curving down a little bit. Be careful, because if you're not too careful, you'll cut through the brim, and then you've got to figure out what to do with it. And I know some carvers say, well, put a feather through there like you've been shot. And you know, I think I've done that on one carving, and somebody really enjoyed it and liked it. And I thought it was I don't know. In literature, they call it something where you have something that makes something else fit in, and I don't remember what that is. But anyway, I'm not a literacy teacher, so I don't know how that is. But anyway, I'm just continuing to shape that hat, give it a little more shape. I'm going to go up here and underneath here, see if I can round that down a little bit. I keep getting a little bit out of the camera, and I apologize. But I'm just going to round that hat to where it looks like it's bending up and then bending back down. Gives it a little more of a crook there. Plus, it allows me to get in here on the face when I need to a little bit more. Again, got to be careful. I've done a few of these things. You got to be careful that you don't cut through the brim. What was it? I saw a video. I have a video from Gerald Sears, and he's an old cowboy carver from Oklahoma, I think is where he's at. And he says, you get an idea of where you're going after you've done 10,000 of these things. And I don't think I'll ever get to 10,000, but I've done a lot of them, and I really enjoy carving these guys. Keep watching the clock. So previous videos are about 20-something minutes. This one's about 28 minutes already. By the time I edit, it'll be over 30, and that's okay. It takes a while to upload those, but no big deal. Anyway, notice I'm a little bit deeper here than I am over here. So we'll go back here with that specialized tool. And we're just going to outline that jaw just a little bit more. And then we'll come in here with that gouge just to shape it. And now I believe they're real close. Okay. Okay, running in the back of your mind is what you're going to do with this hat. What are you going to do with this brim? Or this crown, rather. But also now running in the front of your mind should be, what are we going to do with this face? Well, we've already carved up here to the eye socket. And so one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to separate that now. It's going to come straight down and just cut that piece out. See where I've separated the eye socket, the forehead, and the nose? Now we've got to figure out what kind of nose we're going to do. So we got our center line. Here's the point of the nose, which means here somewhere right here is the bottom of the nose. Does that look about right as far as terms of symmetry? Look at your carving, decide that. The nose is essentially a triangle, and it does this thing right here. And when I started carving, when I first started carving faces, I'd make these things too small and they'd break off. Same thing with hands. Same thing with feet. So I decided a long time ago, I'd make them big, and I can always make them smaller, but I'd make them big. Now, here's where you got to look at expression. I don't know how many muscles there are in the face, but every one of those muscles contributes to do a unique look. So if you're smiling, those muscles do something differently than if you're frowning. If you're squinting one eye and not squinting the other, this side of the cheek comes back up. And so you've got a lot of interplay with muscles and bone and structure and skin. Now you've got to decide what you want to do. And so first thing I'm going to do, this is the nose, and I'm going to take my gouge. Actually, I'm going to grab a smaller one, just a slightly smaller one. So the difference between these two, these are flex cuts. The difference between these two is this is a number 7 maybe, and it looks like it's about 3/8 of an inch wide. In metric, that would be a centimeter. This one is a number 11 because it does a complete sweep from one to the other, from one part all the way another. Does a complete 180 degree. This one is a little bit narrower, and this one is right at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 millimeter. For American standard, that would be about quarter, 1, 2 quarters, 3/8. Not quite 3/8. It's like 5/16, but it's a number 11. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go right upside the nose. I don't want to go all the way into the eye socket yet, and I'll deepen that and deepen that and deepen that. I don't want to go up into the eye socket yet because I'm still going to play around with that. Right up the side of the nose. Up, up, up. As many cuts as you feel like you need to make to separate that nose. See how it's separated? I'm not worried about the bottom yet. Okay. Right here, I'm going to go in with that same tool over to the bridge of the nose and then cut that piece out. I'm deepening that eye socket. I know it's hard to see up in there with this hat brim on, and you can see why some cowboy carvers cut that off. I like it. I like it this way, and I'll continue doing it this way, mainly because of the few times I've done it the other way, it didn't work for me. So I'm not that smart. Anyway, I'm deepening in the inside part of that eye socket. Got an idea where we're going? Deepen it a little bit more with this tool. And I'm going to switch to a smaller one here in a minute, but I usually use the biggest tool I can for as long as I can because, well, you know, if you're doing commissions or you're doing something that's got a time frame to it, you don't want to spend 3 months on something that you can get done in 3 weeks. So anyway, we're there looking at that, and we got that eye socket in there. Okay, I still have not decided whether I want a mustache. But I'm going to shorten this nose up just a little bit. I can always make it shorter and smaller. I can't make it bigger once I cut. So just to shape the eye socket just a little bit. And so if you're doing just a regular eye socket, regular face, narrow that nose up into there, separate right here where the bridge of the nose is, separate the forehead, the bridge of the nose. Make your eye sockets deeper in here in the corners, and they're rounded inside to outside, and they're rounded this way as well. You have to decide what your laugh line looks like, what your smiles looks like, what all these lines out here look like, what your cheeks look like, how narrow is the head compared to the jaw, how wide is it, how far out do the cheekbones come in. You can see how there's so many things to do. But you know what? When you go to do faces, you have seen literally thousands and thousands and thousands of faces. And every single one of them, even if they're twins, every single one of them look different. You can pick out enough differences in a face that you don't have to follow exactly what the book tells you as far as anatomy, whatever. It's your carving again. You do what you want. And so you decide how deep set those eyes are, how bulgy they are, whether one's closed and the other one's open, whether they're winking, whether they're looking this way, that way, that way. You get to make all those decisions. Don't let anybody tell you what's wrong and what's right. You make that decision. And so on this guy, where are we going to go? I don't know. I don't know, but I'm going to do a couple of things. because I've decided I don't want a mustache on this guy. For me, I love doing mustaches. They're just a lot of fun, but it also hides a lot of facial expressions. I'm going to grab my number 6. I think maybe it's a 9. You know, I don't know. Anyway, it is that much of a sweep. You can see that. It doesn't go all the way around, so I'd say that's probably somewhere in the 5, 6, 7 range. And this one again is, looks like it's 3/4, 5/8 wide. It's a Denny brand, OCC tools now. And it looks like it is about 5, 10, 15 millimeter wide. I'm just going to make rough lines, so somewhere right up here is the top of the nares. So we've got a laugh line coming down here, smile line, whatever, coming down here. And this guy's got a smile to him. So these smile lines are going to go, not necessarily droop straight down, they're going to come out and come down. You got a smile to him. Hope you can see my pencil. My wife tells me I need to use a marker, but sometimes I just forget to open that marker. And so if we wanted a smile, we could put a smile in there somewhere and do what we want. We could make one part of the smile higher. Excuse me, a frog in my throat this morning. One part of that higher, which means this cheekbone is going to be up higher. This eye is going to be scrunched down a little bit more. We got a lot of fun stuff to do. I'm just going to take a couple of big whacks to give me some, I don't know, sallowness to the cheeks, sunken in a little bit more. That's going to allow me to poke these cheekbones up above the rest of the face, and maybe we'll get a good smile at it if I don't screw that up. But I got that other head sitting over here, so if I screw that one up, I'll just erase the tape and we'll start all over. That's the miracle of videotaping rather than someone standing there watching me. See how that narrowed that face in? Get a little bit more out here. See what we did to narrow that face? He's got, looks like he's been out on the range a little bit. Okay, we got a little bit of fun with this guy. We're going to continue on with him. Okay, now we're going to draw some more. I better get out that marker. I don't know how much of that you can see. Move the tools off to the side. So the one thing you have to do, you do have to keep symmetrical on eyes, is they have to be level this way. You don't want eyes like this, where one eye is up and one eye is down, because I haven't seen many people like that. And so I usually start with a dot. So if I want to, whatever I'm going to do, this may not be where it's going to end up, but at least that's where I'm going to start. Those 2 dots determine the inner eye duct. So wherever the corner of the eyes come, now you have a lot of fun to deal with. You get to determine how sunken they are, how far back, whether one's looking this way or that way. This guy's looking off to the side. And so if you'll notice, this edge right here of each one of them is narrowed, and the eye is over here to the edge. And wherever the eye goes, that's where the skin goes. So if the eye comes over here, the skin is wider here than it is over here. So we got to remember that when we're doing our carving. So we'll play around with that a little bit more. Let me get a little smaller one than this one. I'm going to grab that file that I was using in the earlier video. So I grabbed a smaller file. This one says it's a number 9, and this one is about 7 millimeters, which would make it about 1/4 inch. Yep. All I'm going to do is deepen the upper part of this socket. And as I get to the inside, I plunge down in. So I want to round this. The problem you got to watch is when you're doing this, you got to make sure that the outside of the eye doesn't come way over here. In anatomy, we understand that the eye, the head rather, is 5 eyes wide. For most humans, the eye is going to be 5 eyes, the head is going to be 5 eyes wide. And so if I look at the separation between these 2 spots, I'm going to grab my little measuring devices here. If I scroll that in to the separation between those two, let me let it out just a hair. So there's the separation between those two. It looks like that's about right. So that's one eye, two eyes, I can't hang on to it, two eyes, three eyes, four eyes, five eyes. We're close. We're close enough to work with what we've got. And so just another piece of anatomy you learned. The head is 5 eyes wide. Now this guy has flop over ear and he has big sideburns, so we can stretch that out a little bit. And in fact, I just noticed this is a little bit wider than this one, so we'll trim that up a little bit. But that gives you a little bit of anatomy that you want to be true to. Because to be honest with you, if you're giving it away or you're selling it or donating it, whatever you're going to do, people don't necessarily look at something that's wrong and know exactly what's wrong with it. They know something's wrong, but they don't necessarily know what it is because they may not be as versed in anatomy as you are. And so they look at this at your eye and notice that this one's a little bit higher than that one. They say, well, something's wrong, but they don't know that, the eyes are the same or should be on the same plane. And so I've got a little bit higher over here. So I'm going to make this guy, let's do this fella, let's do this eye. We're going to make that head look over here. So this is going to look this way. So here's your point. And so this eye is going to go this way and be a little bit wider here to the outside. Because he's going to be looking over here. I'll draw that in black here in just a minute with a marker. So he's looking over here, which means the other eye is going to do the same thing. So we're going to come over here, and I don't want to make my eye too wide, but I'm going to come over here and we're going to go like this. So he is looking like that. He's looking to the left or to his right, or our left, and he's looking up a little bit. So I'm going to take this bottom eyelid, go across and do that. And then his eye is going to come up this same way over here. The moment you think you're a good drawer, try drawing on non-flat surfaces and you'll find out how difficult it is sometimes to get where you want to go. You see what we're doing? We're going to make him look this way. And we're going to have some fun with that because we're going to deepen this and then taper that out here, and we'll give him an eyebrow and an eyelid and all kinds of stuff. But right now we're at 42 minutes, and that'll take me forever to upload, it seems like. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. Your job between now and the next video is to sharpen your tools, because when we get in here, whatever we do to the face, it's a small piece of wood, you got to use sharp tools. I can't emphasize that enough. I'm laughing at my finger and see it in the screen. Sharpen your tools. Take a few minutes to sharpen. If you like, the beginning of the next video, I'll show you some of the sharpening things that I use. And I'll see if I can find time in the video. But basically, I use 2 or 3 systems, and it just depends on what I'm doing. Anyway, into video number 5. I hope you stayed awake long enough to get to this point, because we're going to play around with this face a lot more. And then we're going to finally add some details, and then we're going to switch to the body. So anyway, I appreciate you staying in. Appreciate you listening. And I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.